Welcome to our 15th podcast. Today we'll be talking about leadership and how it can really turbocharge your workplace culture and any of your change initiatives. What's the one thing you can do now to optimize your leadership style? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by independent consultants Rich Cruz, Ben Kleinman, and Cheryl Volpe to explore, challenge, and build on various organizational culture and change management concepts. It's a blend of theory and practice based on their personal and professional experiences working with companies of all sizes across various industries. If you own a business, lead a team, want new ideas about the corporate environment, or just want to listen to a group of consultants talking about how to make work more enjoyable, we invite you to sit back, relax, and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces. Hello again, Harmonious Workplace listeners. As always, we're so glad to see you. I'm Rich Cruz, and I'm joined by my colleague here, Ben Kleinman. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Cheryl's taking a bit of a respite this week.
Well-deserved vacation.
Very good. Going to see horseshoe crabs. So I can't wait to hear about that experience.
Tune in next time to find out how horseshoe crabs can impact your change journey.
These unchanged things that have been around for,
some of the oldest critters on the planet, I think.
That's right. Yeah. You want to talk about people who don't want to change. Boy, those guys say they go to the same place every year and they're like, nah, we don't evolution. We don't need that. So, all right. Well, in our prior episode, right, we were talking about how important leadership is to create and sustain a culture of psychological safety. And really, overall, just to make sure that your change initiatives stay on track, right? And kind of set up that virtuous cycle of continuous improvement, right? Mm-hmm. So today we're going to be talking about some of the different leadership styles, and when we talk about that, it's the there's a model which is the full range leadership model that we're just going to kind of touch on. We're not going to go like huge into depth on this, but it's I think it's a really good way for us to kind of figure what we can leverage and what people have leveraged throughout history,
right.
Really.
Right. And prior listeners will recognize that we've done this before with change models and other types of models, using it as a way to enter into a conversation and think about how leadership can impact your people, your team, their progress, their journey, your change, your transformation, whatever that might be. And as with all things, there are multiple models, multiple ways to approach something, multiple ways to describe things, and this is just one that we seem to have latched onto that seems to work pretty well, but it's really just meant to be a vehicle to enter into a good dialogue here.
Yep. We tend to like our models. Our models and our acronyms. And I don't know if we're going to hit any acronyms in this one. I'm not going to promise we're not. But
I was going to say, if we don't have a model with an acronym, I think we're not doing our due diligence or our job here. So let's do this. Let's dive in. Maybe what we could do, Rich, is you could describe a model or the model that you were referencing, and we could see how that model is set up. So just very high level, how it's set up, and then walk people through maybe a few of the different styles of leadership within that model, and then we can talk about how some of those work better for different certain situations, and we'll get to that one thing that you as a leader should be doing to take advantage of being the leader and how you can optimize your leadership style.
Sure. So, here we go. A little bit of a crash course. If you're watching the video, this will be in the video, so you'll actually see what this model looks like. In any of the other platforms, I'll reference a link so you can take a look at that as well. But what we're going to be looking at is the full range leadership model. And imagine in your mind that you have an effectiveness axis, right, as your y-axis, where your most effective is at the top, least effective is at the bottom. And then on the x-axis, you've got from to the left, you've got passive. To the right, you've got active. Right, so if we look all the way at the bottom left, we're looking at a form of leadership called laissez-faire. Right, so laissez-faire. If you remember laissez-faire economics from, was that Thomas Jefferson? I don't remember, right, but I seem to recall he was the advocate of that. Right, yeah, like leave it alone. He was like, leave us alone, right, but.
And it falls a little bit into that sort of the market will self-correct, the market is self-healing, and the market will drive the right outcomes, that kind of thing. And it's very much a hands-off perspective. So in your 2x2, Rich, of passive to active and ineffective to effective, laissez-faire sort of falls in that bottom left quadrant, the most bottomist, the most leftist quadrant of passive and ineffective. And I struggle a little bit with the ineffective, but we'll dig into that, I think, as we start to tease up some of these other things or tease out some of these other things from this model. Certainly we can all agree laissez-faire is very much passive. We let the market run, we let the organization run. You know, we just kind of make sure that within some boundaries of legality or whatever our corporate guardrails are, it's doing its thing.
Doing its thing, right.
Cool.
Right. Or not. It's just there, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. Then we have the management by exception, which is really like you step in to either guide passive or to get in there and actually do something about, do an intervention, right? And then you're out again, right? So again, it's passive. Some can argue that it's ineffective, but it's still more on that side of, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be a fixer, and I'm out, right? That's kind of how I interpret that one. And then we have the contingent reward, which we've talked about, and that's kind of it right in the middle there. It's like right at the 0-0 part of the axis, right? And that is where it's transactional. So these four components here, right, are on this part of the continuum called transactional leadership. Right, where it really is just that we're doing something and something is happening, and it's almost, I can't say it's status quo, but it really kind of is, right? I mean, so your contingent rewards component is kind of that bridge between the two of transactional and transformational, because if you do this, you're going to get that, right? So. And we've talked about that in change is celebrate those wins and reward that, and so.
And Rich, is this part of the model where those transactions are very much more explicit? Like, for example, in laissez-faire, you tend to understand that if I do something illegal, eventually that will come back to me, or if I do something and I make an investment, chances are the market will reward that and I will make a profit. In the contingent rewards sort of middle part of that grid, is that where it's much more explicit, where if you show up to work every day and put in your 40 hours, you will get your pension or you will get your bonus at the end of the year, kind of thing. Is it much more clear cut in that sense than some of the other
Well, I mean, in my opinion, and so if you in the literature, I would say it's argued as that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How about for you? Like in your experience, does that ring true for you?
Yeah, it does. Many of the situations I've been in, many of the clients I've worked with, I have not seen leaders walk into a room and say, "I'm a laissez-faire leader. I trust you guys to do what you're going to do. I'm not going to get in your way. If you mess up, I'm going to fire you." I mean, I don't see that type of approach at all. But I do see where some situations, teams are set up where it's much more explicit in terms of, here's the goal that we have. Here's what we get if we meet that goal, in terms of, let's say, if you build this house within 2 months, you get a bonus. If you build it in 4 months, you just get paid your regular salary, that kind of thing. And so it's very explicit in that sense. Or if you build it in 6 months, you lose pay, whatever it is. Those tend to be a little more explicit, whereas the laissez-faire managers tend to just sort of sit back a little bit more. They don't get involved a little bit more. They sort of let people manage the project, manage their careers on their own, and they will step in when asked, which I think is a little bit more closer to that passive management by exception.
Right.
The difference maybe is that as an employee, I would have to ask my laissez-faire leader, whereas someone who's managing by exception, the leader might step in a little bit sooner.
Sure.
Okay.
Now,
good. So we've been going for a little while here. So let's pause. Let's step back for a minute. We've talked so far about how leadership can impact your teams and why leadership styles matter. What you can do as a leader will get to become the most optimized, most efficient leader. That's where we're headed with all this. So stay tuned for more of that.
Right on.
For Fortune 100 companies and small businesses alike, Harborside Strategy helps design and implement customized precision change management initiatives. From new organizational structures to new processes to new systems, we help you clarify the reason and urgency around your change in language that will resonate across your organization. With that clarity and a common purpose, we use the power of stories and blended communication methods to reinforce your goals and keep everyone focused and aligned. All of it tailored to your people, your organization, your needs. Contact Principal Ben Kleinman today to learn more at www.harborsidestrategy.com. Again, that is www.harborsidestrategy.com. Are you struggling with high employee turnover, low morale, or poor communication within your team? Do you find it challenging to foster collaboration and trust among your employees? Do you have resistance to some of the recent changes you've made in your business? You're not alone. According to sources such as Forbes and the Society for Human Resources Management, many business owners face these same challenges. They know that success comes from a strong workplace culture, but they don't always know where to start. If this sounds like you, it's time to take action. Our experienced consultants stand ready to work with you to develop customized solutions. Don't wait any longer. Take our quick culture scorecard today and discover where you can improve. Work Balance Consulting, where workplace culture meets success. Visit our website at www.workbalanceconsulting.com/scorecard and start your journey toward a better workplace today. Again, visit www.workbalanceconsulting.com/scorecard.
Now, we're coming back here with transformational leadership. So we're going to look at the other side, arguably the positive side, the effective and active side of this model, right? Which is, again, it starts where we've got contingent rewards where we left off, which is in that transactional group, right? But now we're looking at individual consideration, where we're actually going in and considering each person as a person, and not purely being like cogs in a wheel necessarily, right? We're actually like we're being human. Hey, so then we have the next part of this, a little bit higher, intellectual stimulation. Sorry, intellectual stimulation. This is where we're fostering kind of that learning culture, where we're keeping the flywheel going because we're keeping people engaged and we're allowing those feedback loops that we've talked about. We've got people learning and all of that, right? So, so we're starting to get more. This part is on the transformational side. We hear like in all the literature and all the periodicals, right, that transformational leaders are the most effective and they're most engaged and all of that, right? And in a change situation, we especially see that we laud the transformational leader. Is it? Did you?
Yeah. I was just about to say. It seems like right now that is very much the vogue. That is very much romanticized style of leadership in terms of everyone wants their leaders to be people that inspire them. Everyone, as an employee or a staff member, you want your leaders to help you become the most self-actualized person, teammate, group member that you can possibly be. And it seems like people think that having that transformational scope of leadership skills is very much in favor right now.
Sure. And arguably has been in favor. I mean, we've seen this even like in Stoicism, right? When so it's been around for a while. I forgot my cup. Thanks for the product placement, Ben. When we get into people who are great thinkers, we associate them with great leaders. When we think of people who are now on the next level, so we've got intellectual stimulation. Right now, we're at inspirational motivation. Those who are, who inspire others and really raise them up. Right. Those are. That's that inspirational motivation that we hear a lot about, kind of the hero boss, right? I shouldn't say boss anymore because it's leaders they can come from anywhere in the organization. We've talked about that before too, right? So
yeah. Oftentimes that's one of the hallmarks of a really well functioning organization is that you can have leaders that lead from any part of an organizational hierarchy or any part of a team or a group or a function or what have you, and they see something that they want to do differently, or they see a group that can behave a little better, and they just drive that forward. And it doesn't mean that they're doing it out of turn or in a negative kind of way. They're just making it happen.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's that last one, that sort of topmost, rightmost pinnacle of transformational leadership, the almost polar opposite of that laissez-faire, let it all happen on its own kind of approach?
Yeah. The last block here is idealized influence, right? This is if we look at the leadership challenge, this is the leader that models the way. This is the one that, if we look at Jim Collins' Good to Great, right, this is the level 5 leader. This is the person who is humble enough to, again, model the way to lead by example. And it's the one also who has, they have that inspired vision, and they're really, expressing that vision. So, I think the vision part really comes out of the intellectual stimulation. Boy, I can't get that word out today.
You're in lab rat mode. All you want to do is hit the pellet.
I know, right? Yeah. But that, we've talked about, you have to have a clear, crystal vision, and communicate that.
You
right?
have to have that crisp why, the reason why. And we're not the
Right.
only ones that have said that, but I think it's a really nice anchor for any change. Anytime
Any
you have
change.
any organizational need, you always take it back to why.
Right. Right. But that pinnacle there is the person who has the crystal why, is humble enough to bring themselves into being. I mean, they could still be the CEO, they could still be the the top person, but they're in it, right? And they're in it to win it, and they're part of the group, and they make it known that they want to be part of the group, and they're not just like this detached force, right? So that's like, so there's transformational is individual consideration, intellectual stimulation, inspirational motivation, and idealized influence. And I did not trip over stimulation that time. So. Hey.
Amazing. Well done, sir. Well done.
Well, thanks.
Okay, let me pause here.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick recap of where we are. We started this whole episode talking about how leadership is important. It sets the tone. It serves as a backstop for anything within your organization. We've talked about how leadership really enables some of the best things that can happen within an organization: psychological safety, better performance, all of those things. We've talked about how leadership can really be different styles. And we've laid out a model, or I should say you've laid out a very nice model that traverses this spectrum from laissez-faire, let it happen, we're not going to get involved, to a much more transactional type of thing where it's very clear. You do X, you get Y. You don't do X, you don't get Y. All the way up to this notion of idealized influence, where as a leader, I'm inspiring you, I'm motivating you, I'm helping you become a better person internally in terms of how you behave at this organization, so that essentially you as a person want to do the things that are right for this organization.
Right.
Have I got that about correct?
That feels great. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's pause for a minute and think about when we step back within that framework, within all those things about why leadership is so wonderful and so critical. What is that one thing that people can do to optimize their leadership style?
What is that one thing? And we brought that up in that very early part of this episode, minute one, right? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that one thing, what is that one thing that people can do, given all of that, given the diversity of for me anyways, of types of change initiatives, given the diversity of transformations that I've seen, technology, organizational hierarchies and process changes, all of those types of things.
Yeah. And if you had asked me that question maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said without hesitation, you need to become a transformational leader, right? And mostly on that higher end of this model, right? But here's the thing: is that really the case all the time? Is being that idealized influence and the inspirational person is that important? Yes, but are there times where those other parts actually might work for you?
I totally agree. Yeah. I think in at least in my experience, the clients I've worked with, the leaders that I've worked with, where I see the best leadership is when leaders adapt and when leaders stay open to adapting their style within their own framework. So they're not going completely out of their comfort zone in terms of becoming a whole different style of leadership. But where I've seen the best leaders enable their teams and be the leader that they need to be, they adapt their leadership style. They stay open and they stay adaptable and they stay flexible to the needs of the moment, the needs of the team, the needs of that individual person. So sometimes there are moments where I've seen leaders be very direct and say, look, this is a certain type of initiative. This is a certain type of transformation. You do this by this date, everybody gets a big reward, big bonus, big pizza party, whatever it is. That's just the way it is. There are other times where I've seen leaders take the same types of leaders take a very hands-off approach and just say, here's what we need to do. You all, I trust you all figure it out. And it's a little bit of that upper end, top right quadrant of, I trust you. I'm here if you have questions, but it's a little bit of that laissez-faire. I'm not going to get in the weeds. I'm not going to bother you. I trust you all to do it. And they almost intentionally let that team churn and spin and argue positively, different points and debate different points, and let that team kind of stumble sometimes. And they will only step in if someone asks them to from the team, or if they see it going really, really off the rails and just taking up way too much energy and airtime. So It really depends. And then there are other times where I've seen leaders do amazing work, stepping in, being that coach, that inspiring personality, that motivational speaker, where they help coach that team, where they help coach a small group or a few people to really say, you can do this, you can take on this mantra, you can become this person, or this group can become this group. We need you to be here for us, and I know you can do it, and I'm going to help you every step of the way.
Right. And I've seen, when I'm working with business owners, right, not necessarily bigger corporations, but when I'm working with a business owner who has employees, one of their big goals in any organizational development or change situation is they're trying to systematize their business so that they don't, the adage is like they work on their business, not in their business necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. So they're striving to get more in that left side of the quadrant, right? Because they can't do everything. They can't be there all the time. They need to empower people, right? So that leader needs to be able to step back. So they'll have to start on the right side of the continuum, right? Mm-hmm. And set the vision and get in there and be humble and have people make mistakes and all of that. But at the same time, they have to bounce back and forth. They'll have to exercise management by exception, because they're going to need to go and correct and be disciplinarians and all that stuff at times, right? So yeah, I think right.
That's really interesting. So it's almost like a intentional progression from where we thought leaders would want to end up, in that top right inspiration, motivation, self-activation corner, where they're intentionally moving down and to the left to become more of that laissez-faire leader. And it makes me think a little bit about boards and governance models, where you have essentially the same mantra of where you were saying managers were trying to what was that phrase you used? Do work to enable the business but not do the business? I forget how you phrased it.
Work on the business but not in the business.
Right, work on the business, not in the business. And from a board governance type of perspective, it's often phrased as sort of noses in, hands out, or noses in, hands off. So you're not trying to do the work of the staff, but you're definitely in there making sure that the organization is living up to its values and meeting its mission and things like that. And so it's the same kind of thing. And it's a nice way to think about where you as a manager need to be, want to be, think you should be, from getting the organization to be where it needs to be. And it just, I love the idea that you've seen your clients and your people that you've worked with from a leadership perspective kind of be able to traverse that.
Well, ideally, not all the time. So but ideally, that's where they want.
But that's where you come in.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's where we come in, right? That's
right.
To help make a culture where people are empowered to do what they need to do, and where the owner and other leaders, they they can do what they do, right? And do what they do best, which is, oftentimes they're growing the business and working on the business. And we need leaders who are also, on that transformational side too. So, I think that's where the whole, we looked at industrial organizational psychology, right? A few episodes back, that organizational side. Traditionally we've always looked at in the industrial side. Can the task be done? What kind of rewards do we need to give, and how do we manage the discipline to get it done, right? It's very nuts and bolts, but the organizational side on the motivation and how do we get leaders, how do we develop leaders within the organization to keep things going, that sprung out of that or the organizational side of psychology sprung out of that need for that leadership, if that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
This has been a great overview of different leadership styles, why different leadership styles matter, how you can intentionally, thoughtfully traverse the spectrum of leadership styles from laissez-faire all the way up to all the way up to idealized influence, and really take advantage of the different approaches to meet the moment. And you as a leader can absolutely adapt your style as you need to get your team, your organization to meet the moment, to be what you need them to be, what the organization needs them to be, to do that. And if you need help, that's why Rich, Cheryl, and I are here.
That's why we're here. Right on. Absolutely. So let's wrap this up with, what's that one thing that people can do?
Be adaptable. As a leader, you need to be adaptable. You need to understand that you have different levers you can pull or muscles you can flex, whatever you want to say, and you need to be able to understand what the moment needs. And as a leader, that's your challenge.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you have a wide selection of tools that you can use. Just choose the right one and run with that. And if that doesn't work, you have other ones to choose from. So, great. Well, thanks, Ben. This has been fun.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Right on.
Always a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we really appreciate you tuning in to us again this week. Be sure that you connect with us on connect with our podcast on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and all the other places that we're at. Also find us on LinkedIn. We've got our website at harmoniousworkplaces.com, where you'll find the podcast itself, and we will have a blog with these podcasts on them with some of those transcripts soon. And then make sure that you visit harborsidestrategy.com. That's Ben's Ben's website.
Yep.
And then Cheryl and I are over at workbalanceconsulting.com. And we'd love your comments and any kind of suggestions that you have for our episodes going forward.
Yeah, we love the feedback. Let us know.
Absolutely. Feedback is key. So,
thanks, Rich.
All right. Thanks a million, Ben. See y'all later. Take care. Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces. You can find Harmonious Workplaces on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and other streaming platforms. We'd love any feedback on whatever channel you find us on. Please rate, like, and share our podcast with your network, and remember to add Harmonious Workplaces to your list of favorites to get notified about each new episode. To contact Rich or Cheryl, please visit www.workbalanceconsulting.com. To connect with Ben, find him on LinkedIn or visit at www.harborsidestrategy.com.